Please pray with me. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Poor disciples, poor Jesus. I do not know for whom I feel most sorry. The disciples were scared to death and feared for their lives. Jesus was exhausted and just wanted a quiet nap in the stern of the boat before facing his crowds across the lake. Tensions were running high for the fishermen. Fear has a way of doing that. Roused from sleep, Jesus is faced with a scene of panic as his disciples were certain that death by drowning was imminent. I imagine that the awakening was rude and loud and fear-driven, out of control. The final insult that the disciples hurled at Jesus was, "Lord, do you not care that we may perish?" Poor Jesus. Jesus, who loved these stumbling, bumbling guys with his entire life, had this accusation thrown at him. So unfair, so unjust. However, my initial reaction is sympathy for these scared fishermen. In an environment they knew very well, plying their fishing boat on the lake daily, a body of water they've probably known since childhood. Suddenly, they're way out of their comfort zone and convinced they're facing death in a very short while. The boat that has borne them safely on countless fishing trips was about to disintegrate, and their frantic rowing had no effect whatsoever. The sail had long since been lowered. I can empathize with these poor men, for I too panic when my surroundings become threatening and my vehicle fails me. My choice of vehicle is usually a car, not a fishing vessel, but hey, Galilean fishermen, I get it. You're out of your depth, and fear rears its powerful head. A week or two ago, my trusty Volvo put me in just such a situation. Close to nightfall and about 25 miles away from home, I was on a lonesome country road, deserted except for me, when my car groaned a horrendous groan, which prompted all the lights to flash across my dashboard and give warnings that weren't exactly friendly. If Jesus had been in the back seat, rest assured, I would have wakened him too. Fear can change everything in the blink of an eye as trust flies out the window. Come with me for a moment to the Sea of Galilee and let's climb into this fishing boat. There's not a lot of room in this open deck vessel, for we need space for oarsmen, we need space for the catch, we need space for the nets, which are strewn all over the hull at the moment. Please stay near the front of the boat because our friend Jesus is going to have a little nap in the back, in the stern. See, we've laid out a cushion for him. Yes, there are other boats around, but the journey to the other side of the lake will give him a little time on his own, some much needed alone time. So off we set, without a backward glance. No one seems to be looking at the clouds that are rolling in. We're setting off to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. The Sea of Galilee is a fairly small inland lake. It's about 10 miles long by about 5 miles wide, and it's not far from Nazareth. And as the name implies, one side lies along the Galilean shore. This small inland lake is very susceptible to violent weather which rolls in from the hills on either side of the lake, very reminiscent of our Chesapeake Bay weather conditions, where in a moment the weather conditions can change and we can be in the midst of a dangerous storm. Who knows exactly what unfolded when Jesus climbed into the boat and all set off for the other side, away from the crowd? This is at the height of Jesus' teaching, and I think Jesus is practicing a little self-care here, as his popularity has robbed him of any personal time whatsoever. The people arrive to hear him no matter where he goes. They cannot get enough of him. His message is great. But more important to them, most probably, was his healing touch. His healing touch, for in this land where illness, physical and mental, were not fixable, illness often left you an outcast from society. the compassion with which Jesus ministered to the crowds, and his teachings, which were like no other teachers, earned him pop star fame around the lake, certainly. And no matter how much he gave them, they wanted more. His message never varied. I have been sent by my Father to tell you of his love. Trust in me. I'm the way to my Father, whose love for you knows no limits. The crowds lapped this up. But did they get it? Did they really understand the message that was the message that was changing their lives as Jesus was performing his miracles, as Jesus was performing his healings? Certainly, who did not get it were the fishermen, were his poor disciples, his constant companions, his cherished 12. We can just hear his frustration as he is roused from sleep. Why are you afraid? Have you still no faith? This must have hurt him too. How could these dear souls with whom he spent so much of his ministry remain oblivious to his message? His message, the whole point of his coming to earth. How could those so close to him not hear him, and to quote our prayer book, inwardly digest his words? Once more, Jesus to the rescue, and they are astonished that even the wind and the waves obey him. How many more hoops must Jesus jump through to convince them of who he is and of the love that encompasses them? Who then is this that even the wind and the storm obey? They question. Have they got it? Have they finally heard it? Well, maybe for this moment they have. Are there times when we too are fair weather friends of Jesus? How deep is our faith? When the storm hits, can we see our way through it? Some storms we get through solely by the grace of God, with Jesus as our constant companion, our co-pilot. We do not have the human Jesus, the Son of Man, with us as did the disciples, but most surely we do have the divine Jesus, Son of God, with us at all times. Friends, perhaps it's time that we strengthen our faith muscles a little bit so that we can handle the storms. We can weather the storm better. Would a little holy boot camp be in order? After this year of COVID, we may well feel a little out of shape physically, mentally, and indeed this could stretch to our spiritual life as well. Perhaps with a little more focus on prayer time, a little more listening for God in our life, a little more reading his word. With practice, we grow stronger. Our faith becomes more resilient. We are better able to understand what comes at us in the storm. We may need different tools to handle the new challenges, because it does appear that we are emerging from our cocoons of COVID isolation, and life will be different. If you feel that your spiritual toolbox needs a little updating, talk to Jessica or talk to Leslie. The storms will be different in future, but when the storm does hit us, it would be good to be ready so that we can let Jesus sleep on his cushion, knowing that at all times and in all places, he has our lives in his hands, firmly in his hands. You cannot go wrong when Jesus is in your boat. As always, don't go it alone. It's good to be part of the community of saints, for we are all heading the same way, and the journey is so much more enjoyable when we are not the lone traveler.